Welcome to Land Speed Legends, a podcast talking to the men, the women, the legends that make land speed racing great. Discover the stories of these ordinary people whose passion for land speed racing has made them legendary. And now, here's your host, the Bonneville Belle, the High Boy Honey, the Salt Princess, Alanson Volk Dean.
The legendary Hugh Coltharp's first time to Bonneville was in 1958. He spectated until 1971 when he crewed for the Skidmore Atkinson's Studebaker. In 1976, he ran his own car, a V4 Street Roadster, where he set a record at 88 miles per hour. He then went to crew on Vesco's 444 car and then Don Vesco's motorcycle liners. He was also one of the original founders of the USFRA and was their treasurer for 38 years. He owned a restoration business and was one of the three people who did the restoration on the Mormon Meteor 3. All right, I am excited to have you on this.
Well, thank you, Alanson.
Yeah, on the podcast. It's going to be exciting.
Alanson.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just start with your beginnings of how you got involved in land speed racing.
Well, my father was kind of interested, so we'd go out to Speed Week, and then we went out when both Breedlove and both the Arfons were running, and I saw a couple of runs. I don't remember which ones I saw. I did see the 600-mile-an-hour run with Craig in the second car, the four-wheel car, and I did see the three-wheel car run a couple times, but I think it was just warm-ups or checking things. It wasn't the official runs. And then I saw Gavlich set the record in, I think it was 1970. And later in life, I got to know both Breedlove and Gavlich and Arfons, because Arfons came to some of the USFRA meets.
Really?
Yeah. He came with a jet-powered motorcycle, of all things. Anyway, I got to know him, all three of them. So that was pretty interesting. I mean, Breedlove's still alive. Gavlich has passed, and of course, Arfons has passed. But I did get to know him. Yeah.
Were you get to know him pretty well, or?
On Gavlich, we had it was probably the very first Save the Salt. Your dad would remember it, down with the BLM and the government folks down at the Hilton Hotel. And Gavlich had come up to speak because he held the record at that time. Mm-hmm. And he had been injured in a boat accident and had to go up to the University of Utah Hospital for dialysis. So I would take him up to dialysis twice. I took him up twice. And, while they're sitting there, you sit and chat with them. And that's basically how I got to know him. And Breedlove I got to know basically through Ron Christensen, who did a lot of artwork for him on this last car. And Arfons, I just knew because he showed up. You know what I mean? with the motorcycle and ran it.
Yeah, very cool.
And we had to get a room. I remember had to get a room for the rider. And this is for the Utah Salt Flats Racing, is when he ran it.
Mm. And so when you were first, I mean, this is a little bit later when you got to know them, but you were watching them when you were younger. Yeah. And so
that was a really big deal on the news and everything else. Anything they did was big news. So it was interesting to watch.
Were there any other cars that kind of stood out to you?
I remember the Goldenrod. I remember I was there when the Summers brothers ran the Goldenrod. Yeah. They ran it. It was all over in a couple of days. They were just done and gone. But I do remember going over to Wendover at that time, the Air Guard, the Utah Air Guard, had those hangars. And I remember they let them use the one to take the Goldenrod apart to do because it was wet. And they took it apart and cleaned it and did some sort of mechanical, something on the drive lines.
Very cool.
So I do remember that. I got to know Bob Summers. He built some rear end parts for some other cars I was doing restoration work on later, before he passed.
Wow. Yeah. So. You know a lot of the big names there. So, and then You guys were spectating for a while. You started going out.
I spectated until I knew Wayne Atkinson through antique car business. And Wayne said, we got to come out and help us. We need help. So I came out. They had a Studebaker with a Chevrolet engine. Then later they had the Dodge Dart with the flathead in it. And that was just Wayne and I. Dave was still involved, but he wasn't there daily because he was running his business in here.
Dave Skidmore.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so you crewed for them, the Studebaker, and
then later the Dodge Dart.
Okay. And what did you help with? What was kind of your duties?
It was pretty open. Check all the tire pressures, make sure, the diver's suit's out, make sure the steering is hooked up. The Studebaker was a pretty professional car, really. And then the Dodge Dart was a professional car, but the SCTA did not like it because of the vintage engine and the later model chassis. They did not like it.
How come? I mean,
well, you were running against a 38 Chev Coupe, and here you had this 63 Dodge Dart that was a whole lot better car. And you could lower the front end with a end wrench.
Yeah.
And they just didn't like it, but the rules didn't say you couldn't run one. They do now, but they didn't then. They didn't then. Not a Dodge Dart, but a later car.
They've changed rules because of us.
Well, I will tell you one story that was fairly interesting. Was when your father built the present number 59 car, he needed a body for it, a fiberglass body, and Cal Automotive made about the best ones at that time. And the owner of Cal Automotive was killed in an accident. However, your father had paid for, and the body was done, but there was a fight in the Cal Automotive owner's family over who got the business, who did this, who did that. It was not happy. But a friend of mine who knew everybody had us break in and get the body and brought it back for your dad.
It was like held up while they were arguing over.
Yeah. We could see it in the shop, and we knew it was paid for. So
that's so funny.
So Joe McClellan and I high-graded the body out of Cal Automotive over in Hollywood, North Hollywood. The guy that owned it did a lot of movie fiberglass stuff for various things they needed in the movies, but he did a lot of race car bodies. And he had the body done. It was paid for. And I had talked to him about a week before he died. And he says, when you coming to get it? And I said, a couple of weeks. He says, well, it's sitting right here. So we went up there and basically jumped the fence. And your dad's the one. I think it's the present body you still have. Yeah.
I don't think it's changed.
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know that. That's a good story.
I brought the body back. Yeah.
Good for you. So
that's some of my duties.
Yeah, there you go. There's some crewing duties. Yeah. So they kind of brought you from spectating into crewing, and
then you just got to know people out there.
Yeah.
The people are friendly, and the people were interested in what you were doing. And if you didn't act like an idiot, you did. Things worked out well. And Rick had just moved up here.
Yeah.
And he didn't know a lot of people. He knew a lot of California people, of course, but no Utah people. So I offered to help and did a lot of work on that 444 car. But that's not the present car. It's been stretched. The body's been changed. It was the old, not the original 444 car, but the
in-between one.
The in-between one.
But before that, you were driving. You started driving. You built your own car. So let's go back and just talk about that for a little bit. So what kind of got you interested to think, I can maybe do my own, start racing and build my own car?
We'd formed the Utah Salt Flats Racers Association, and we were planning on putting on basically a meet every 6 weeks or meet a month. And I thought, well, why not have a car out here? So I was building that Model T, and part of it Wayne Atkinson owned, part of it I owned, and I bought Wayne out on his half. And so I just built another motor for it, and we ran it out here. Your dad was very helpful on it, as was Wayne. Wayne was helpful, and had a lot of good help, instruction. And we got the record the first year. And in the second year I blew the engine at the 3 mile on the way back. Now these were the 10-mile runs, not the short runs. Everybody had the long course then. And I made it through the lights, not very fast, but I made it through the lights. And the record the second year my record was topped by another competitor. However, his car was super illegal. And John Vesco, that would have been Rick and Don's father, said, don't protest him until they give him the record. So I protested after they announced he had the record. And they re-teched the car and said, no, take the record away. So I actually held the record for 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Well, probably wasn't the most sportsmanlike thing to do, but the car was so illegal that,
And that's like we were saying, nobody cares until you go fast.
That's right. That's right. So then when I worked with Rick, we ran the Riley 4-port engine in it. We ran the Hal. We ran...
How did you get involved with Rick, though? Just meeting him?
Meeting him. He came down to a meeting on crutches. He broke both legs in the Mint 400, and he was on crutches when he came in.
That's funny.
And he had it wasn't the last shop they had up there. It was the first shop that was actually an old bicycle hardware store downtown Brigham City. And then he moved out to the 1100 South store. And that's the one. In fact, your dad and I went up there 2 weekends and drywalled it.
Oh, the one that's just like right off the exit.
Right on the corner there when you turn to go to Logan. Yeah. Yeah, but your dad and I went up there and did a lot of drywall work up there. Yeah. Helped him out.
Yeah. I remember that building well.
Well, yeah, but you may have been born then. I don't know. I don't know,
but I just remember the building afterwards.
Sure.
So you met Rick through USFRA, though?
I met him at the meeting.
At the meeting. So before
I had actually talked to his father about vintage parts on the phone a couple years prior to that. And we got to be pretty good friends over the phone, and I'd meet him out at Speedweek. He and Betty, his wife, John and Betty would come up, and I'd usually go out and have lunch or dinner with him or something. And it just one thing led to another. And Rick says, "Boy, I sure could use some help." And I says, "No problem."
Yeah,
because there was basically just Rick.
Wow, Don wasn't.
Don was in California, and he was still running racing. I mean, full time.
And so you
not just land speed, but motorcycle racing.
Yeah, his racing. Yeah. So you get involved with Rick, and so
it's very, very good. We had great time.
Yeah,
we had great times.
So what you started with the 444, the middle 444.
Yeah, the first one. I just saw the body. I never saw it together. The second one, Rick went in and redid the chassis and upgraded some of the safety stuff, and that's a very safe car. We ran the Hal in it, which was an Indianapolis engine, and then we also ran the 4-port Riley, the Model B Ford Riley, and then later he put a 302 Ford in it. We put in it that he got from Ack Miller. We put that in there, and that's when the car went over 300. And later we found out when we tore that engine down, Rich says, it just doesn't seem to have a lot of horsepower. Turned out the motor he got was for a motorhome.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but it still went 300 miles an hour.
That's so funny.
Anyway, we took that motor out and put a Chevrolet in it. And then they decided to lengthen the car and change it because the Chevy was a pretty tight fit with everything in there. And then that's when the car got rebodied. It looked the same, but it was bigger. And funny story, the little 444 plate that's on the dashboard, that came off a stove that Don Vesco had in his first body shop.
And is that how they came up with the number?
It said stove number 444, and it says the Little Giant. And that's where the name of the car came from, and that's where the name came off a stove.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good.
That's a little gem of a story.
Well, they still got the plate.
Yeah.
And so I said to Rick, the last time I was out there, which was 3 years ago, I guess it was, because COVID, and then they didn't have it for a year. Anyway, I said to Rick, so what's left of the original car that we had? And he said, that plate. And I kept a little piece of moly tubing, and it's just welded in there.
Just to have an original part of it.
Yeah, we were joking one time that when they restore sailing boats, if they keep a piece of the keel, it's the original boat. So
it's the original car.
So it's the original car. But learned a lot. Those folks were really good to me.
Yeah.
John moved up here for a couple of years. He just couldn't take the winters. If you're a San Diego guy.
He's a true San Diego boy.
Yeah, if you're a San Diego guy, you cannot take Brigham City winters.
Although Rick did, so.
Rick did, yeah.
They're brutal up there, Brigham City. That's a whole different story. So, that's so. Anything else that you did with just during that time with the 444?
We did the 444 car. I helped a guy run a Mustang out there at the same time that I can't even remember his name. That's the sad part. He was a local guy I knew. I did the engine for him. He worked for a friend of mine. He worked for Matt White, and he was a mechanic that worked for him, and they ran the Mustang, and it did real well. I got a record with it, a production record. And then when Rick started to go to started the jet car and stuff like that, it was really out of my expertise area, really. And then he was the car got drastically different.
With the turbine?
The turbine car, yeah. It's completely different. Yeah. I worked on that car when it had the 2 Offies in it. The first go-around, it had Chevys and then 2 Offies. I worked on it both that time. In fact, we built a trailer for it up there. And I did the fiberglass work on the first body, but not the one that's on there now. No, there's been about 3 or 4 bodies since then.
Yeah. Well,
they keep learning things and changing.
Yeah.
And that's how it works out there.
Yeah.
You find out what works, then you change it.
And they adapt. Yeah, you just adapt.
Yeah. The car may look the same, but it really isn't the same. It may look the same or look similar.
Yeah. But then not after, actually probably in between that you're helping, you help on the Don Vesco's motorcycle liners.
Oh, yeah. We worked on the first one was the Silverbird, the Yamaha, the yellow. Well, it was called the Silverbird, but it was yellow. And he got multiple land speed records with that and the ultimate land speed record with that. And then Yamaha kind of pulled out of that. They figured, well, we've got the record. Why do we need that? So Don went with Kawasaki. And he took a bunch of records with Kawasaki. I don't know if he got the ultimate land speed record with that.
What's the ultimate land speed record? I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean the wheel-driven bike record.
Oh, just like
it's like cars. Yeah, it's up there now. I mean that Attack is moving.
I see what you're saying. Okay, just like the ultimate, like the fastest motorcycle.
Yeah, the fastest,
okay,
it has to be 2 wheels and balanced.
Gotcha.
But the other thing that was interested was. The last year he ran the Silverbird, he wrecked it, or it tipped over. I mean, that happens. And I remember I hauled my welding tanks out there, gas welded the frame back together. So I've got a picture of the car. Don signed it and says, "Thanks for putting the car back together." The welder, because he had hurt himself and he'd come into the hospital here. And then later, with the Kawasaki bike. He hurt himself pretty bad, broke a collarbone and some abrasions. And I brought him in that time too to the hospital,
Yeah. And so,
I mean, they had an air ambulance and they had that, but we were quicker. I could get in here in an hour and a half.
Yeah. Sometimes it is quicker.
Yeah. It wasn't life threatening. He knew he'd broke his collarbone.
Yeah. That was just it. Just a color. For Don, that was probably nothing.
But and I hauled Bill Edwards that worked for Ack Miller. He fell off a pit bike and did a number on his head. I mean, he didn't have a helmet on. Always wear a helmet, even in the pits. Yeah. And he fell off a pit bike and really banged himself up. And I hauled him in, and he was actually in the old Holy Cross Hospital for 2 weeks while they were. He had an abrasion and blood.
Wow, 2 weeks for a pit bike.
Actually, just wear your helmet, Alanson.
Yes.
Tell those sons of yours to wear their helmets.
I know, not very. I'll try to be better. And those were basically the 3 cars that you the 3 main cars that you or motorcycles, vehicles.
I worked on those for a long time.
Okay.
And then later, I worked with Kenny Cloth on the Mercury.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we did a lot of work on that. And then Dan Wright with his streamliner, I helped him with that. And the gentleman with the bike from Talmadge, Ohio. Jimmy. We helped him. He's passed away now.
Do you remember his last name?
No, I don't. He's Dan's friend, but boyhood friend. And we got him in the record book. So that worked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one way he got it in the record book the second time was he had a lot of free Bonneville horsepower. They had a hellish wind blowing down the track. That really helps you.
Yeah.
I've had really good experiences out there. I've never, the only time I ever got hurt was when I walked off the end of a car trailer and twisted my leg, but that's about the worst thing that's ever happened. Burnt yourself a few times.
Oh, yeah.
And, stuff like that. But no, it's been very safe, and they are very safe out there. So.
Yep.
They do a good job. And then I got to know everybody being in the Utah Salt Flats Racers, and it was such a small organization. I mean, I was going over the list of people in my head on the way out here. Well, it's Al Teague, George Bentley, got to know them very well. In fact, still good friends with Al. And you just recently interviewed him. Mm-hmm. And Clark Cagle, he's sadly passed away. Morton Strain, Tom Stonebrocker, Bill Temple. Who ran a really fast roadster. I got to know Bill Kenz of the Kenz and Leslie crew pretty well out there, and got to know Roy Leslie later. Mm-hmm. That was his partner, and Andy Green. Helped him with a couple of things when they ran the JCB
diesel streamliner.
JCB streamliner, and then let's see, who else did we talked to and worked with. There was a lot of folks that just nice people that, they needed to know, where can I get this done? Where can I get that done in Salt Lake? And Don Ferguson, Sr., Jr., and the third, all of them.
Yeah.
Mike Cook. Let's see.
It's quite a list you got going.
Well, I'm just thinking as I was driving out here to talk to you today.
This is all people from USFRA. Like, are you saying from
I knew them from USFRA, or if they wanted someone to help them.
Yeah.
With Andy Green, when the JCB team came over here, they had a secretary at JCB that made their room reservations. Well, she found this place on the map where the rooms were really cheap. Unfortunately, it was Ely, Nevada. And, it's a long ways from Ely to Wendover. So I got a hold of a friend of ours, John Hansen, and John got him set up with rooms and everything else. I mean, that saved him because Speed Week, you can't get a room. Mm-mm. And John got him rooms, so. That worked out real well.
Yeah, great.
That worked out real well.
So how did you talk to me about the startings of the Utah Salt Flats Racing Association, the USFRA.
We had a meeting. First one was very informal, and we decided we ought to have a more formal one. So a week later, we all met at Skidmore's shop. Now, in the meantime, there had been some meetings with the BLM and USGS and the state of Utah. And basically, the state of Utah was not going to provide any more funding for track maintenance. And it wasn't really the state of Utah. They gave the money to the Salt Lake, I don't want to say the Better Business Bureau, but it was the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce got the money. And then they somehow kind of figured that the money didn't really need to go to Wendover. We'll spend it on something else. And that all came clear back from the Ab Jenkins days when they were prepping the track for him.
That's how they were involved.
Okay. And so I remember your father and I and Don Mattinson took not the present car you have, but the one before down and ran it at El Mirage. And on the way back, I remember talking, and why don't we get something going in Salt Lake? We're 125 miles away. Why don't, it's our local track. It's actually closer than El Mirage is to most of the guys that race at El Mirage. So we sat down at Dave Skidmore's shop one evening. There were 13 of us there, and we kind of hammered out what we wanted to do. In the meantime, there had been these meetings with the BLM and the state. And the gist of the meeting was, unless you can show local use of the facility, we see no reason, because the BLM's done by districts. It's not just it's the U.S. government, but it's a district of the U.S. government. Mm-hmm. And the Utah district, they said, we don't see why we should provide any services for a bunch of Californians to come run the race cars up here. I mean, they were not car people, obviously. So we said there was a really good guy that worked for him named Dick Godfrey. And Dick said, look, guys, organize something, come out and race, and I'll show them that we're using the track and they need to provide the maintenance money. In fact, Dick helped us drag the track the first year.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good for the BLM. They don't do that now.
No.
No. Anyway, so we put the thing together. Your dad knew a guy who knew a guy that got us a set of clocks, and they were 132-foot track clocks. And the computation in the mid-1970s computer would only go to 300. So nobody could run over 300, or we'd have to sit and do the mechanical calculation. Luckily, we had a guy in the club named Clyde Summerhays who was a math whiz, and he sat and figured out when the elapsed time through the eyes what it would be. So when Al Teague ran the not the liner, but the Lakester that became the liner. And he went 313 the first time with it. We had to sit there with now don't laugh, a slide rule and a yellow legal tablet and figure out how fast he went. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But one thing led to another, and we had some really good meets. Those meets were only 132-foot traps on a 5-mile run up, but we had times that were faster than the guys that turned at Bonneville because it just worked. The track was better. The air was better.
You had it later in the year?
No, we had them in June, May and June.
Oh, that's, you guys were racing in May.
May and June, yeah. We actually had 4th of July meet out there.
I do remember July meets, but May and June, that is so early.
Yeah, and it's cool in the morning. It's real cool in the morning. You get good air.
You just couldn't do that now.
No, things have changed. And then... So we showed use of the track, and they provided some money for the second year. They provided. In the first year, it was all done volunteer. We all drove the track. We all went out there and worked, took shifts and drove the track. And the surveyor for it donated the time, and it worked out really well. I believe it was 76. Speed Week wouldn't have happened if we hadn't drove the track.
Wow.
So that's how it happened.
You guys really wanted to race.
Yeah, well, everybody wanted to race, and there was no reason why we couldn't do it. Things are different now, but we did it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's when Greg Lyons was doing the study out there and had all the PVC tubes all over out there. He's checking the water levels and all. And that's when that all came from the line study.
And what is the line? I don't know much about that.
The line study, there was a gentleman that was a scientist that worked for the USGS named Greg Lyons, Lines. And Greg went out and bored over 100 holes on the salt flats and put PVC tubes and measured the water for 2 years. And he knew exactly what was going on out there with what we all know.
Yeah.
With the salt's disappearing.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly, and he came out and stated it. But it just got put somewhere else.
Unbelievable.
So they've had these subsequent studies that do nothing more than prove what Lyons already did.
And they just keep saying, we'll do another study.
Yeah.
We'll do another study.
We'll just throw some more money at it.
Maddening. You're like, why don't you throw that money at the salt restoration project?
Right. Fix the access road and do some things like that.
Yeah.
But, the other problem too is Greg Morgan worked with us. He was the BLM man, and he was wonderful to work with. And then miraculously, he gets transferred. And he's up in some national forest in Idaho. But he would come down on his vacation time and help us. And that's really nice. And he's still around. I know he's every once in a while you hear something about Greg Lyons. Or not Greg, Dick Godfrey, Dick Godfrey. And he'd come down and help you. I know on this last stuff I've read on Save the Salt, they mentioned it. He'd, memoed somebody. Now, wait a minute. He's retired now. But wait a minute. Listen to this,
Wow.
So he's still around. Yeah, he's a good guy. Dick's a good guy.
We need more guys like that in there.
Well, yeah. I mean, he earned his money and he did a good job. And that's hard to... You can't ask for anything else.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the good ones don't seem to stay in that.
They get moved.
Yes. And that's not
There are other agendas.
Yes.
But Yes. Yeah, I've had a lot of good times out there. I mean, we were out there when Nolan and Al, they'd come to every one of our meets and run their cars. They had Nolan White and Al Teague. And then later we had, it was before he was into the land speed record, George Poteet would come and run as many meets as we'd put on. He'd come and run. So that's good.
And what was he running?
At that time, he had that Blowfish.
Oh, it was the Blowfish at the time.
Car, yeah. And then locally, we had, Terry Nish spent a lot of time and a lot of money out there on running cars. And he was very, very helpful. Very helpful. Terry was good at helping. And in the early days, there was just a few of us. I think maybe 20 total. I mean, we did everything.
Right.
We used to have Bill Wolfington, who ran the air ambulance. He was also the Wendover, Utah policeman and a security guy at the old state line. And he would fly the Cessna, the 206 out and park it for an air ambulance. And then they didn't have paramedics then. That's before the paramedic thing. We had Gillette Ambulance from Tooele. And that was way before.
That's how you ran.
That's how we ran it.
Ran the meets. And then you were a treasurer for USFRA for 38 years. Yeah, that's pretty long time.
I saw a lot of things in the money department. But we had some good sponsors from time to time. We had Alfa Romeo came out. Your dad was involved with that. We got the Alfa team out there. And they spent a lot of money with us. And we had Alfa. We had Lincoln Electric Welding. We had... Terry brought a couple of sponsors out, liquor sponsors out that were good.
Oh, Mainstay.
Well, Mainstay and another one too. He had a beer. There was, I think don't quote me. I mean, I guess we are. I think it was Coors. Coors came out.
Coors, that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, came out and sponsored. They paid for shirts and paid for certain things, and it was nice. And they were really nice because both Terry and they were nice because a lot of those shirts went to people for their kids and that, and they didn't have the liquor name on them. They just had the race car, and that worked out fine. So, it's kind of nice. You don't want your kids running around with a bunch of liquor advertising, cigarette advertising on their
Well, not today anyways. No. Maybe in the 60s.
Even then you didn't.
And so, so you did that for 38 years. That's a long time. That's a pretty long time to be doing that. And you're a money guy anyway, so it probably was a natural fit.
But still, there were some times it was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And there's times that was tight. Well,
the problem always is you can't really charge people what it really costs. You've got to have something to defray the cost. And the sales of the T-shirts and posters and this sort of thing is really, really the only reason why. And then once we got the internet and got a website up, we could sell stuff year round.
Yep.
Because before then it was basically you sell it at the meet, sell a little at Speed Week, and then hopefully somebody would find you, But it's okay now. I mean, they do year-round business.
Yeah.
So it's worked out real well. Yeah.
Go buy a shirt.
Yeah. Well, a shirt, that $15 or $20 that a shirt costs, the shirt doesn't cost that, but it costs the customer that. That money goes directly in to help the racers.
Yes. Yep. That's
and then we came up when we had to change. Utah had their own. We never had a rule book. We used the SCTA BNI rule book, and so there was kind of a lot of discourse, and the California guys weren't real happy because, quote, some of the Utah records were faster. So everybody agreed, everybody being Utah, California, whatever, that Wally Parks was pretty non-judgmental. So we got Wally to come up for 2 years to our meets, paid for him to come up, and Wally and his wife come up. They're nice people, or were nice people. And they would come up and watch how it was run. And he said, I see no problem. So then we were allowed to merge the rule books. So you can set a record at a Utah event and it goes into the book, and vice versa. Their records are in their book and you have to run against them.
Yeah.
So whatever record's in the book, you have to run it against. And the 200-mile-an-hour club chimed right in, and they were fine. They came right in with that too. So it worked real well.
To have that same rule book and the same, it really does. It makes sense.
It's dumb to fight over it.
Yeah.
Because you got a limited amount of people, limited amount of money, and a lot of people are really counting on doing that.
And let's fight the real.
The battle is not that.
Let's
the
not.
battle is not that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Let's pick our battles here.
Yeah.
So, one of the really interesting things, though, is, and in between, of course, you're was a stockbroker? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was a stockbroker.
You were a stockbroker
from 69 to 92 every day.
So this is how you were doing your everyday thing.
But stockbrokers get off work at about 2:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have time to go do other things. So that's when I do the car work, or if the club needed something done. I mean, we did a lot of crazy things we built for the club.
Yeah. And but you had a car restoration business.
Restoration business, yes.
And so, well, tell me about that. What kind of cars?
Did mainly antiques. That would be pre-1940 cars. Did a lot of machine work and prep and body work and stuff like that. It did a lot of cars. I mean, I did some of the later stuff. Mainly, though, it was early cars. And a lot of times it would just be a guy needed this done or needed that done. So I'd do that for him, kind of like a subcontractor.
And what was the name of the business?
Just HC Garage.
Yeah, I like it.
It always worked. We did, when I got involved with the Meteor deal, was through John Price. And I knew Marv, and I'd met Marv a few times, and he was shopping the car.
Explain who Marv is, though.
Marv Jenkins is Ab Jenkins' son, and he got the car back from the state of Utah. It was Ab Jenkins gave the car, when he quit racing, to the state of Utah. It was put in the state capitol. It was supposed to be maintained. Well, as things go, the state didn't really maintain it. And then at the end, the state had loaned it to, and they couldn't remember who they loaned it to, for a movie, which was never made. And the car was found in California and brought back and was stored not more than half mile from right here out in a field on the other side of the steel yard right there.
My jaws dropped.
Yeah. And Marv got the car back, and he approached the governor at that time, Norman Bangerter, and got $70,000 to restore the car. Well, even back 20 years ago, $70,000 wouldn't restore that car. But Marv was really good at managing to find people. And Quinn Epperly was the guy that originally built the original aluminum body on that. He was still alive. And Quinn came up and lived at Marv's house, and they pretty well got the car straightened. Napa Auto Parts supplied the paint for it, to paint it back to the original Firestone colors. And it was pretty much what I would call a non-running restoration. It looked good, but you couldn't drive it. And it would run, but it ran on 10 cylinders, and it was shooting enough water out of it because it just wore out. The engine was wore out. So John Price got interested in the car and went down and talked to Marv, and a friend of mine, Roger Brazier, and I went down and we took the engine. Marv had the engine out of the car, and we took the engine apart and found out what all the problems were, and there were a lot. And so then we started figuring out how to do it. And Frank Buckler and I welded 16 pounds of aluminum rod in the blocks to rebuild the blocks, and then Roger got some liners made, some sleeves made from LA Sleeve Company, and I got some Ross pistons made for it, and we re-machined the block. The Kirkhams down in Orem did the deck plates to straighten everything back out. It was a lot of work, and I'll never forget the night we fired it off. We had it all ready, and poor old Marv Jenkins was on his last legs. The poor guy was not doing well. And we had him out there. We had his son, Charlie, who was a good guy, and John and Jim Williams and Roger were there, and the film crew for the Boys of Bonneville movie. So, you wonder on how much this stuff is staged. Well, that starting the car was not staged. I knew it was going to run because I set the magnetos on it, and I knew. So Charlie, the big honor was Charlie got in the car, hit the wobble pump, primed the carburetors, and hit the starter button. It turned over about maybe for 10 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, and it fired right off. And it was running good. And John Price turned to me and says, well, I don't understand how that happened. And I said, John, 12 cylinders, 48 valves, 2 magnetos, 24 spark plugs. Something's going to happen. He just looked at me.
One of them's going to go off there.
Yeah, something's going to happen. So anyway, that was it. And then we did a lot of tuning work in that on the car. And we took it out for the movie. And we found some tires for it. And that was it. The tires have been a big problem at Bonneville from day one. Well, we were going to lunch one day down from the shop where we had the car just west of here. And there was a trailer, a semi-trailer sitting there. And I looked at the tires on the trailer. Now, trailer tires are straight side. They're like a land speed record tire. Not the tractor tires, but the trailer tires are. And they were Firestones, and they had the old script on them, like the ones in the book, picture book. And we had some rotten original ones. Anyway, so when we got back, we went down to Commercial Tire, and they had exactly those tires. And we bought, I think the tires were $190 a piece, and the tubes. And we mounted them all up and ran them down to their place. And they had a rubber grinding machine down there. And they profiled the tire to look like a Bonneville tire. And so we talked to Firestone, and they said, well, those tires are good to 130 miles an hour. So we didn't dare run the car over 130. But the 130 is just barely second gear.
Oh, wow.
And they ran Andy Green drove the car. John drove the car. There's a couple other people driven the car. I backed it out of the garage. That's as far as I got it. But it runs fine,
And now it's in John Price's.
It's in John's museum down there, yeah, on 2nd East. And then I kind of pushed kind of hard when the auction came up for him to buy Al Teague's liner and the Roadster. I said the liner's famous, but we Roadster guys, the Roadster's more famous. And I think Mr. Price knows now that Roadster's pretty famous. We took it to the LA Roadster show in 18. And Al was there, and he was so gracious and so good with the public. He had a crowd around him the entire show, and I think that's a 3-day show.
Are you talking about the LA, Grand National Roadster show?
The Grand National show, yeah. The one they just had.
Yeah.
And he had a crowd for 3 days around him.
I believe it.
People want to take pictures of him with the car, take pictures of the car, pictures of him, and it worked out real well.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
That's very neat.
That
was
a lot of fun.
And at that time, John do you think that's when he really kind of realized how?
John didn't realize until his daughter or granddaughter got him on Facebook.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, it's just lit up. Look, I went to the Roadster show or the Grand National. Look who I got to see, and look whose car, and all this, that. And anyway, all of a sudden, that became a much more important thing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So that's good. And, John, to his extent, John saved the Salt $10,000 because I watched him write the check out that night out there. When we had the movie out there at Bonneville, I don't know if you were able to go to that or not. And we premiered the movie. Which? The Boys of Bonneville.
Oh, I know, I didn't.
Out at the movie theater there.
In Wendover?
Yeah, at the convention center. They got a movie theater in there.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to see that.
786 people in there.
Yeah, that's a great movie. What year did that come out again?
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when we took the car down, the car went down to Jay Leno's and then Leno's come up when we had the thing up here at the University of Utah in the car. When we had that art, did you go up to the museum when we had the thing up at the museum? The speed exhibit up there.
No, I don't think
that ran for almost a year.
I felt Yeah,
Because
no.
we had both of Teague's cars, or no, we had the liner.
Maybe
we had
I
the
did.
liner in, we had the Meteor in.
Now I'm thinking,
and we
I
had
did.
Meteor 1 in, and we had Meteor 3
I feel like
in there. And the best part about it was taking Al Teague's liner down a hall 50 feet long and having to make a turn at the end of the hall. I took the nose off the car and we got it in there. We got it in there.
back up, forward.
Not to degrade the folks at University of Utah Art Department, but they're not quite into that.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a cool. I honestly don't think I did see that.
Did you get a copy of the book, the speed book? Okay.
No. Okay. Where was I? What year was this?
10.
Oh.
Ellen's got the books.
Oh. Yeah.
11. It might be 11 or 12.
I mean,
it was about 12.
I was getting married and having kids at that point. I was like,
that's okay. It's okay.
excuse. I was having babies.
Yeah.
So
we can get you a book.
Yeah, I would love one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wish I could go back and go see it.
Yeah. it filled up that whole art museum up there. So.
Neat.
So, it's, I've enjoyed my times out there. We've made a lot of good friends, met a lot of people.
Well, your list of people that you are friends with is pretty
got to know them pretty good and still friends with them.
Yeah.
So, that's pretty good.
And what do you think, was that your most favorite moment when the car started, when you were working on the Mormon Meteor? That was kind of like the
when it came to life.
Aha moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody couldn't believe it. And I said, well, John, it's got all the parts in the right place. It'll go. It's amazing how that all happened, though, because the gentleman that rebuilt the Magnetos died about 2 months after we got the car going. And Marv died 3 weeks after we got the car going. So, what I'm saying is they get to hear it. So that's good.
Yeah, they got to hear it.
They got to hear it and see it.
That's neat.
So
that's really neat.
And, it's a famous car. I mean, there's you can't take away from it.
No, it's and Ab Jenkins' story is just really neat. It's a neat story, and I think he just got inducted into the
motorsports, the big one,
the big one
back in Daytona,
Motorsports Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
he just
and as he should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think he still holds 16 records. They took one of them away with the Corvette guys down in Texas Motor Speedway, but it took 6 guys and 4 Corvettes to beat an old 30s Duesenberg with a 1920s airplane engine in it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real thing. The best thing, though, about the deal was when Marv was up here, he would stay for a couple of 4 or 5 days, and he'd have to go home. And he was not in real good shape, but mentally he was clear, and we had a good time. And so the evening, he was staying in one of these, it was right over, not too far away from here, the extended stay motel type thing, just close to where the car was. And he would say, I'd say, well, Marv, how about dinner tonight? Well, yeah, what do you got? And I says, do you want Mexican? You want to see the Mexican girls or the Greek girls or the Chinese girls? Where do you want to go? And he'd say, oh, let's go to the Mexican race. So I would sit there and it would be a 4-hour dinner and talk to him. And he would tell me things about his life and about his father's life and stuff like that. It was just invaluable.
Wow.
And it's just he and I.
That's awesome.
I says, am I driving you crazy? He says, no, it's good to go down memory lane. So that's how it all happened.
Really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was something that he told you that was really memorable?
Ab Jenkins bought Marv, and John Price now has the car, Studebaker Indianapolis car. And I don't know what the theory was, but he was driving it on the streets. And he got so many speeding tickets that for penance in Salt Lake at that time, he had to clean up all the papers at Dirt's Field, the ballpark. But Ab was lining up this Meteor 3 project, and Augie Duesenberg Fred Duesenberg had died, and Augie was still extant back in Indianapolis and was looking for work. So they sent Marv back there to live with him for a year, and he lived back there for a year. And Augie, I was just like a son, and he said, we get up and go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, come home at 10 o'clock at night, and every day building that car. And then they drove up, Ab finagled a brand new Ford pickup. This would be a 1935 brand new Ford pickup for him to go up to Lakehurst, New Jersey to get the engine from, it was E.L. Cord that owned Lycoming at that time, to get a used Lycoming engine to put in the car. And they went up and got 2 engines actually, and came back and fitted the second engine in the Mormon Meteor 3. They had put a similar engine the year before in Meteor 2, and it didn't work, or Meteor 1 to make Meteor 2, and it did not work. It was too heavy in the front end. The car was a street car, and it just didn't work. So the Meteor 3, which is Meteor 2's engine in a later chassis, is and actually he said the Duesenberg company was already in bankruptcy. And he said, but Augie had a key to the gate, and we snuck in and stole a frame.
This sounds very familiar, this story.
Yeah. We talked about that earlier. And broke in and stole a set of frame rails.
Oh, that's fun.
And they were actually what they call service car frame rails, which would be like a hearse or a limousine, long wheelbase car. So that's how that all came to pass.
So he was very connected to that car then.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was there from day one. And he was really good at telling you, how this should be and how that should be. And it's really funny because the only time Ab Jenkins was ever hurt was he had a transmission fire in that car. And what they had done is tried to add transmission fluid during one of the endurance runs, and that fluid had got in on, not the exhaust, but the drive line, and caught it on fire, and he couldn't get out of the car. There wasn't an interior door handle for the to get out. And there's a door, but there was no handle. And
it's like a nightmare.
and the door handle's off a 35 Plymouth, if you want to know what the door handle is on the Mormon Meteor. Oh. It's off a 35 Plymouth. Funny. But they didn't have the interior handle. So I made, from a drawing that Augie Duesenberg made, I made the latch, the escape latch on it, and put it on there. So it's on there now. It's a red handle you grab and pull it, and the canopy flips up.
Oh. But
it never had that before. It never had it before. There was no way to get out of the car. Once they shut the door on you, you were in there.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That sounds...
Yeah.
Ugh.
Obviously, Ab Jenkins didn't suffer claustrophobia, but he did get burned, and he couldn't get out of the car. And that was the problem. There's no fire system. We also put a fire system in the car, a halon system in it.
Wow. So you guys really updated it.
Well, we had to, because you just don't want to put... You don't want to put Andy Green in the car or Mr. Price in the car and go down the road and have a fire.
Yeah. It's really neat. So, that's a really cool project. And you got
something you'll never forget.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in the mind's eye. I took some pictures, but we really didn't have time. I mean, it was just, we were kind of under the gun to get it
in the
done.
moment.
Yeah, in the moment. I remember. But Roger worked really hard on it, and I think I worked hard on it, and the Jenkins family worked hard on it.
Yeah.
And we got it going.
And it turned out great. And
it turned out good. Yeah, I repainted the front fender. Well, the pontoons behind the fenders, they were pretty beat up. And because Marv hauled the car around trying to raise some money before we got involved, and they kind of banged it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Sounds like a restoration project.
It was a restoration project. Yep. And then we fixed the seat. Finally, the seat is adjustable in the car, but it hadn't worked for years, and Marv never got around to getting that going. So I got the seat adjusters all working and all that. The car has 2 throttle pedals. It has a right and a left one. And if your foot gets tired with the right one, you can drive with your left foot.
Huh.
And got all that operating. Well, when you're driving for 24 hours.
Yeah. That would make sense. Yeah. That's funny. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually pretty smart.
Yep.
So, well, and then now you have retired from your restoration business.
I basically closed my shop last year at the end of the year, and I'm just working on my own stuff.
I'm doing my thing.
I got a 29 Model A Roadster I'm working on. It's just about done. And I got an AC Cobra that
Wow.
But I need to put the engine in and paint it. But I just got to get to it. You know what I mean? Move all this other junk out of the way and get to it. So there you go.
You're so close.
Yeah, well, it is close. It really is close. So, yeah. So you're
just kind of doing the things you want to do.
I keep busy. Yeah,
Good for you.
I keep busy. And I've done some projects in the last couple of years that were, I built a bunch of body panels for people and stuff like that. It's a lot of work and it takes time away when you figure you're 70 years old or 69 years old. You know, you're getting closer to the end than you are the start. So you might as well get something going.
Well, good. I'm glad you're doing what you want to do and getting your stuff done.
It's a real blessing to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah, really and you still go out to the SALT every year. You go out to the USFRA meeting?
Well, when they have it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You probably haven't been out there for a couple. Did you go to Speed Week when they had it?
This last year?
Not last year, 2022.
Yeah.
No, 2022 is canceled.
Well, whatever the last one they had, I went there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for 3 days, yeah.
Yeah. So you've been there.
Yeah,
recently.
I talked to, in fact, last year, about this time last year, I had part of the 444 engine up there because they'd put a Tesla thing in it there, and that Tesla thing, and then they were going to put the Peak brothers were going to put for Rick, we're going to put the Model B engine back in it. And I had the block over here, and I got the work done on the block. A friend of mine in Carson City, Nevada did it. And but I don't know what's come up there. I'll have to call Rick and find out what he's doing.
Yeah, that's interesting.
He was kind of bummed out because we didn't have any racing.
I think join the club.
Yeah, join the club.
Yeah, everyone was a little bummed out.
That's right. But yeah, it's been a great thing. And you don't realize what you were out there and what you saw. Yeah.
Oh,
because it's, you know.
Yeah, you don't.
You'll see it on a documentary or something. Well, here's a picture of so-and-so going so fast. Well, yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So. I know that's special. And yeah, it is special. Yeah.
And the people you've met over the years. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've met some just wonderful people.
Yeah, amazing people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, is there anything else anything you can think of?
I just appreciate the opportunity you've afforded me here.
Well, yeah, I love to hear your stories.
It's worked out real well.
It's been wonderful. So
I would suggest that the people that are listening to this support the Save the Salt group.
Yep.
And support the BNI and the USFRA because they're the only thing you got.
That's right. If you want to keep on doing this or if you enjoy it.
If you enjoy it, I mean, you know, there's the guys that they'll never make it, but maybe through hearing stuff like this, they'll come out.
Yeah. And I think on a lot of car guys, it's on their bucket list to make it out.
And I just figured it was always there. We always went.
Right.
We didn't have a bucket list.
That's right. I think it's, what does it say? Bonneville's not a bucket list. It's a lifestyle.
It is. Well, you kind of live your life around the end of August, middle of September. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But I think the more people know about it, the better it is for everybody.
I agree 100%.
It's harder to hide dirty deeds if there's too many people out there keeping an eye
on it. I agree 100%. And that's kind of, part of why I wanted to do this as well is to kind of maybe
do a good
get
job.
more
I've heard
people.
2 or 3 of these you've done. And how are these accessed now when we want to come listen to these?
They are. Well,
Are they on your Facebook page?
You can get them on Facebook. I'll post them on my Facebook or Instagram page, and then they're also they're on a podcast, so they'll be distributed to all the different places that have podcasts, like Apple or Spotify.
Great.
Yeah. So if whoever, yes.
So do we access it through Alanson?
You access it through land. Like if you look up Bonneville or land speed rate, like land speed, mine will come out. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Because I've got people that want to know how to get them.
Just wherever you listen to a podcast, if you look up Land Speed Legends, you can find it.
Okay.
It goes to all of them.
All right.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah, there you go. So
proselytize those that need to be proselytized.
Thank you. That's right. So yes, and we want everyone to go to SaveTheSalt.org, and your donations will go to the Salt Restoration evacuation plan. Thank you for your wonderful interview, and thank you for listening to this Land Speed Legends episode. Please consider liking, sharing, and giving it a review. And don't forget to go to my Facebook or Instagram page and follow me. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Land Speed Legends. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with the show on Facebook and Instagram under Land Speed Legends. Until next time.